his role during the Nigeria-Biafra War. Mark Press was a public relations firm that sold the Biafra War to the outside world. In the first place, the war started in 1967 and ended in 1970. Originally, the war was considered a domestic conflict. That was the way the Nigerian government projected it. They said, don't come, it's domestic. But in the course of the conflict, it became internationalized. It ceased to be domestic. So many governments became involved. So many groups became involved. How did the war become internationalized? That's what Mark Press did, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Unfortunately, not much has been said about the role of Mark Press in the conflict. Yet, Mark Press made the war a global issue. There were two major themes that Mark Press adopted in its propaganda. Biafra had a directorate of propaganda, one for local use and one for international. Mark Press presented the international propaganda outfit based in Geneva. Now, the two things Mark Press adopted were genocide and religion. Biafra argued that the conflict, Nigeria was waging a genocidal war against Biafra. This was very popular in the outside world. Now, why it was popular was because it was clear that the Nigerian government was dropping bombs at civilian targets. This was reported globally. In fact, the conflict was described as a tele-war because of the way some media groups got involved in the conflict. It was reported all over the world. Apart from dropping bombs at civilian targets, they also adopted starvation as a legitimate weapon of war. You see pictures. In fact, up to today, if you Google Biafra, you see pictures of starving children, dying children. In fact, this made the war very popular. The conscience of the global community was awakened to the issue, the conflict in Nigeria, as a result of this starvation as a legitimate tool of warfare. So church groups, humanitarian agencies got involved. Now, in places like the US, groups like the Jewish community had to collaborate with Catholic organizations to send reliefs to Biafra. In Germany, it was popular. Britain worked with the Nigerian government. And because of that, Britain was unpopular in Germany. Germany accused Britain of genocide. And in response, Britain said Germany didn't want to continue with didn't want to live with the stigma of genocide alone. They wanted to bring in other countries like Britain. Of course, Britain funded the war, provided the arms, everything that was needed, alongside the USSR. It was a funny situation because it was during the Cold War era. Britain collaborated with the USSR. In Canada here, opposition party supported Biafra, but the government didn't want to recognize Biafra. Trudeau felt recognizing Biafra means giving recognition to Quebec. And so they didn't want to talk about Biafra. In fact, he asked the question, where is Biafra? At a point, he labeled Biafrans Nazis. This was highly criticized. People said Biafrans were not Nazis. Another important theme, religion, which was popular, was used. They said it was a war between Christians and Muslims. Biafra was predominantly Christian, and then Nigeria was a mixture of Christians and Muslims, but more of Muslims. So this was popular. Religion as a theme was very popular in Europe. And the impact was that it attracted so many church groups in Europe. These groups gave huge relief support to Biafra. So my interest in this is how Marcus was able to push these two major agendas to the outside community and how they responded to the conflict. At the end, the conflict ceased to be a domestic concern. It became an international issue. Governments and non-governmental organizations became fully involved in the conflict. Unfortunately, the propaganda war did not win the independence for Biafra. Biafra lost out at the end of the day. Nigeria won militarily, but lost at the propaganda front. The important thing about this conflict was that the war was waged on two fronts. The military front and the propaganda front. Whereas Nigeria led in the military front, Biafra won the war on the propaganda front. As I say, winning the propaganda war did not translate to winning the total war. At the end of the day, Biafra got reintegrated to Nigeria.
Okay, thank you. That does allow some time for questions, and perhaps after we've asked questions of this speaker, we can go back to the ones that I had to cut short earlier. Yeah, so question there and there.
I'm Mark Press, and I'm interested in bird block there, but recently Chino Achebe just put his memoir, of course he was a very influential actor in the propaganda next to the war, wasn't he?
Pardon?
Chino Achebe and his memoir about the Biafran experience. I seem to remember he was very effective as a spokesman of the Biafran experience.
Chino Achebe was involved. And his book, The World Country, which was published last year, had raised a lot of controversy over some of these issues, especially starvation as a tool of warfare. He says genocide was committed, but it's been a contested terrain. Genocide was highly contested. In fact, it was because of the activities of Mark Press that a group known as the International Observer Team was invited to Nigeria to observe the war. It was unique because for the first time, a body like that was observed and invited to observe a conflict while it was going on. I am not sure if any such thing ever happened anywhere in the world. So, Chinua Achebe was involved in the conflict, but he was more or less an ambassador, traveling to places, lobbying for Biafra. Somehow, he was involved secretly in the propaganda. But they don't talk about it. He was the chairman of the group that prepared, a popular document known as the Arua Declaration. So there were things they prepared, documents, which served propaganda purposes. But they usually don't talk about that aspect. He was involved actively. Yeah? Does that answer your question? Okay, absolutely.
Question?
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. Yeah, according to what you said, you said that Mark Press was able to expose what was going on in the war to the international community. And my question is, then why is it that the international community was incapable or was unwilling to stop the ethnic cleansing and the genocide that Achebe talked about? So why didn't they issue an campaign to prevent those things from happening? And it is one of the worst cases of ethnic cleansing in African history until today. And then, secondly, after that war, why didn't the international community do anything to prosecute those responsible for those crimes and atrocities? As they did recently with people like Charles Taylor and Laura Mabo. Those two questions.
Thank you very much.
In 2 minutes.
I'm not feeling very fine. I'm very sorry. I have a lot to say. Well, as I said, it was considered a domestic conflict, and the UN, in its charter, wouldn't want to come. UTANT, who was
France is in Mali right now.
I'm coming. UTANT felt it was a domestic conflict, and then there was no reason to come. But it was beyond that. The war was fought by Britain. And Britain lobbied to make sure the United Nations didn't come. That was the major reason. Britain was solidly behind the Nigerian government and didn't want the intervention of external powers. So, what was the reason? The oil investment in the Niger Delta. Shell BP was in the Niger Delta and they invested a lot. So, the fact any support to Biafra or intervention will not work in their own favor. And that was why, when the issue of genocide was raised, they quickly collaborated with the Nigerian government to bring in the observer team. The observer team was a public relations exercise to cover up. It did not investigate that genocide. but genocide was committed. It's a fact which has been investigated. In fact, I have worked on that. I will talk about that in Siena in June. So,
basically, for the same
it was genocide in Biafra. Britain didn't want it to be investigated. And they used the observatory to cover up that cost. Question.
Okay, we have 1 minute left. If there's a question, I'm going to speak with the previous one. Yeah, Peter.
Who funded Mark Press? And what were they after? Was it rival oil companies that wanted it French? Who? Swiss?
Mark Press was funded by Biafra. It was purely managed by Biafra. The funny thing about Mark Press was that it did not generate the reports. It only acted as a conduit in the distribution of the reports. The reports that were sent by Mark Press were generated from Biafra and by Biafrans.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, okay, yeah.
Can I ask a question previously?
Sure.
I thought you answered a really complicated question really quickly and well. But I want to ask the other speaker a question about men. I'm curious with men, I mean, there's the question of, are their grievances legitimate or are their strategies legitimate? I think those are two different questions. And I mean, for me, men, their grievances, I think men and unemployed youth in the Delta, their grievances are completely legitimate, all the reasons you explained. But their strategies are what often then undermine people taking side with them, right? And this question of men's been around now for long. So what do youth involved with men see as the alternative? Is the alternative that they just want a piece of the pie, or do they have a sense of, alternative development, redistribution, whatever? Is there kind of ideology being reproduced, or was there, Ken Saro-Wiwa and that generation who had an environmental, social justice view, and now men are disgruntled youth who just want to be able to feed their families? So that's what I'm curious with men, especially that they now be around and relevant.
First of all, like you said, these content elements, that to an extent explains the government version of interpreting men and all militant groups in Niger Delta. And you also need to understand militant groups in the first place is an illegal group, not necessarily a legitimate group that is supposed to operate within a legitimate state. So in trying alternative, the men feels that, or perhaps even the communities where men operate, see men group as heroes, trying to salvage their community, trying to get back what belongs to them. While the government and perhaps international media see men as a militant group who are then in the process of trying to emancipate the Niger Delta from government and oil companies as legislation, got involved in violent activities are now being fused with some kind of greed among members. Of course, the greed there is an element of greed in the men's militant group. Some of the militants I interviewed
spoke a lot about the leadership being too greedy, and that sometimes, of course, when they kidnap, a few times they have been paid ransom. The share doesn't trickle down to every militant group, to every member of the militant group. It does perhaps among the leaders. Even when the issue of amnesty program was initiated, that was in 2020 now, to an extent stop militancy in the Delta, reintegrate the men members and all militant groups into the society. Within a few months, the amnesty program was established. It was a match in controversy, a match in corruption. You see, you have political elites who are bent on, plundering the resources even more, because there was this idea of pay every militant group a particular amount, give them some skills. Then elites that were appointed, they were members of the amnesty program, did not, they were told to repay those who have given up arms that accepted amnesty. They were told to repay them 60,000, I think 65,000 naira or so. But it didn't go around. You see, there was this massive corruption that characterized that same amnesty program. Now, those that felt, okay, we have given up our arms because we want to stop them, because we have accepted amnesty. And now, the essence of giving up arms, to accept amnesty, which of course will give way to development, empowerment, employment. The income was not forthcoming. And these are youth in their prime, have responsibilities. What next? Kick the arms back and go back to the grace to start fighting. That is why, you still have militant men are still there, is still operating, is still kidnapping, is still destroying all facilities. Government group every day on the internet, you see what they're doing. But there is a group and so many other groups that are supposed to have, die down completely with the rise of the amnesty program. But every attempt at instituting measures to end the conflict is always emerged with some corruption. Corruption involving the leadership of the militant groups, involving the political elites, involving the so-called oil companies themselves, so oil employees themselves. So you see, alternative measures to bring about peace, stability in Nigeria has many times been initiated, but because of perhaps governments not having foresight, or not getting people who are really willing to work to bring about peace in the so-called program, because it was inability to do so. You see, the militant, they kept reimagining. Today they are dropping their arms. Tomorrow they are kidnapping again. Next week, see, it kept on and on and on. Except, like my argument is, except once Nigeria, to an extent, have the right leadership, because it's only the right leadership that can institute measures to bring about development, bring about employment, bring about try to tackle issues those militant groups or communities in Nigeria has raised. If you don't have Nigeria Delta, if you don't have the right leadership,